We've all been given varying levels of life force according to our purpose, our destiny, our capacity, and our jurisdiction. The more life force you have, the bigger the assignment that you have. Your life force speaks to the level of wealth you've been given to materialize on this earth. If you have not watched my video, What is Wealth? Wealth as Circulation and Containment, not Accumulation, I highly suggest you watch that video before you watch this one. Anyways, hello, I am Naomi Olatayo and I am the Wealth Priestess. I awaken and initiate governors, unprecedented leaders, trailblazing founders, and originating founders into their wealth, and I give them the blueprints to execute their destiny. I am here to help you to stop finally shoving a 100 million gallon vision into a 30 million gallon container. It was never going to fit, and I want to show you how you can build the correct containment to hold and scale the entire magnitude of your vision. Anyways, let's get into today's video. Physical reality is governed by birthright laws. What is possible for you to manifest, build, and birth on this plane is based on what has been given to you, your life force, and that is within your womb, even if you are a man. Your life force is your identity, your financial abundance, your desires, your impact, and your vision. That is your life force. And that is what funds or fuels the wealth that you have been given to materialize. That is your inner wealth, the cumulative, chaotic potential of manifested reality, and that lives within you daily. There has never been a moment of time that you have existed, even before Earth, without that level of wealth. That is your potential. One of my favorite teachers / coaches on here, her name is Yielded Vessels. I don't know her last name, but her name is Maney. Yielded Vessels 19, I believe her YouTube handle is. And she has been saying for years, you get what you own, not what you want. What she meant when she was saying that is you get according to what is your birthright, what has been given to you already. Your birthright is what you have the right to claim and anchor into the earth on the physical plane. There are some beings out there who do lack connection to source, sometimes out of pride, and sometimes because they might not be entirely human, but that's a whole different story. That's why we have an energy siphoning problem on Earth, because of pride and because others live among us. This is how certain people stay rich, by siphoning energy from the classes below it, because you can only create what is naturally occurring within you. That's why some people can create fame with ease. And that's why some who may be even more talented than those who are actually successful and who have a lot of fame. That's that weird discrepancy. Like some make it and some don't. Sometimes there's other reasons, but sometimes it really just goes down to who has fame in their birthright. Not all of us have fame in our birthright. Not all of us are meant to use certain gifts or parts of our life force to impact the collective like a lot of celebrities do. Right? That's a whole different story. Those who own the containment structures Those who own the containment structures through which life force flows are the wealthiest. Notice how celebrities are the working class of the wealthy? That's because they don't own the containment structures through which their life force circulates. So if you want to own your wealth and you want to actually be wealthy, you have to own that containment, which is something that I teach you how to do in my Originators wealth cycle. And I'll talk more about that later in the video. I want to introduce you to the parable of talents, because that has been, I'm sure you've heard of it, obviously. I mean, I grew up in church, so I heard it often, but I never understood it. It just didn't make sense. Also, when you're interpreting things like that through a Christian evangelical lens, it leans very heavily towards like, oh, you're a sinner and you're going to go to hell, or you didn't use the gifts God gave you, you're going to go to hell. I don't feel like that, but I do think this is a very practical explanation for what we are meant to do with our life force. So the parable of talents, begins in Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. I am not going to go through all of it, but you're welcome to read it. I'm going to be breaking down each verse according to where I have notes for. So verse 15 says, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. I always was stumped with that because I was like, why did he give one more than the other? Because that's not fair. How come they, according to his ability speaks to, according to their potential capacity. All of us have different levels of capacity, and we have varying levels of capacity because we have different levels of responsibility and different relationships to consequence. Someone who is a treasury of an important, do they have treasuries in organizations? Let me use a different example. Someone who is responsible for watching the president's dog has a different relationship to consequence than someone who is watching their neighbor's dog. Not that the dog is any more important or different, but the context is different. Each of us in reality serve different purposes. Each of us were created to fit into the collective whole, for unity and for harmony and for reciprocity. We all don't have the same function. Capacity speaks to function. The higher the capacity, the larger the function. And we're all meant to work together for harmony, essentially. So it's not that he received more because he was better. He just had a deeper relationship with consequence. He just had more responsibility. That's all. The master also didn't give each individual the same amount because he understood structural load. We all have unique designs. We all have unique makeups. We all don't have the same architecture. Like someone could read 17 books a month and another can read 35. And the one who reads 17 books a month is not any greater or lesser than the one who reads 35. They just have a different processing speed. That's all. To force 5 talents into a container meant to carry 1 would cause a structural explosion. So the master distributing the talents individually was intelligence. It was structural intelligence. When you have been built as a 5-talent person, playing small isn't modesty. It's a structural violation of your design. Living outside of your design is living above or beneath your capacity. Later in the parable story, the servants come back to give a report for what they were able to produce. And the ones who were given 2 and 5 talents, so the first 2, they were able to double their talents. That also kind of stumped me because I was like, why were they only able to double it? Did they not have enough time? It's not about what they were able to produce. What was being communicated was that this is a mirror. It was the first fruits or evidence of materialization. It was doubled because it was a mirror, as above, so below. Their output was a perfect symmetrical reflection of their input's capacity. And they demonstrated that their foundation was sound enough for them to receive more and surplus. They were given more afterwards because wealth moves in the rhythm of exponents. That's what I call the law of fractal overflow. The more was built off of their double, which is the foundation. And because they mirrored their capacity accurately, the master said, I will set you over much. So what that part of the story is really communicating is that there is a rhythm. There is initiation to your wealth. This is what I teach in my Originator's wealth cycle. I teach that for originating, trailblazing, governing founders and leaders with unprecedented high magnitude visions, in order for them to execute the vision that they are meant to execute on this earth, to fully materialize it, requires for them to go through what I call a wealth initiation. You cannot outrun the wealth initiation. You have to go through it. And that is you taking your capacity, whether that's 2 or 5, and showing to the universe that when it's tested, you come back with double. That double is the mirror. Do you have the capacity to carry exponentially more than what you were given initially? What you're given initially is the 2 or 5 talents. That's your life force. the first mirrored expression of that outwardly is the foundation. That's what your wealth initiation produces. And of course, I teach all of this in my Originators Wealth Cycle transmission, which we're having another one on July 19th at 4 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern, and all the details are listed down below. And once you finish your wealth initiation, then you are given increase. And that's when you start building exponentially and things begin to rise over and over and over again. You understand? So I want to talk to you about the one who hid their talent, because that also always confused me until I understood this. I was taught that the one who hid the talent was being lazy, which the Bible did call it lazy, but I was like, well, what if I just needed a little bit more time? What if I didn't? That's not the point. That's not the point. Parables are cryptic messages, basically. The suppression of your wealth out of fear is cowardice. The one thing that you have that you are meant to produce on this earth, like that is your purpose. Your wealth is your purpose. It doesn't matter if you were given 1 talent or if you were given 25. Your job is to be a reflection of the Creator. Again, if you haven't watched What is Wealth? Wealth as Circulation and Containment, Not Accumulation, I highly suggest you watch that video before you continue on for this portion. But we were made in the image of God. And we were created as His image for Him, I believe, to experience Himself, to witness His glory, to experience His glory. And we are the expressions of His glory. And so when you're given wealth and you sit on it, Let me dial it back. Verse 26. But his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents." The master is our creator. He mirrored the materialization of his wealth first by creating the universe and us. He experiences itself, through humanity specifically. As humans, we have a spark of God within us, a fragment of God. That is our life force that we're meant to materialize on earth. If God is the ocean, we are a drop. And we all carry that spark of God in our bodies. That drop of the ocean is in us. When you suppress the nature you were created in, which is the image of God, you give God an inaccurate mirroring of Himself. You know how it feels to be inaccurately mirrored. Like, I hate it. I hate when people look at me and they know damn well that I am not who they're reflecting back onto me. Or when people call your confidence arrogance. When people are jealous of your beauty, so they say like, "Oh, you look a mess today." When someone knows that you are so intelligent and they discourage you from applying for whatever Ivy League you wanted to go to. You know how rage-inducing that is, to live a lifetime of never knowing who you are because everyone around you refuses to give you the reverence and the proper mirroring that you deserve. You know how agonizing that is, especially if you were raised by narcissists, right? You never know yourself because they're not being truthful to you. You have to figure out the hard way, or if people are there to be gracious to you, then you find out through their mirroring. But you know how hard it is to not be mirrored. And I actually have a video titled "The Trauma of Being Unmirrored." If I remember, I'll link it down below, but I probably won't remember. That's okay. So we all know how it feels. And I guess sometimes it might feel not right to try to humanize God in that way, but if you don't like to see God in that way, then think of it. Think of how I interpreted our reason for existence. That's what I believe we exist for God to experience Himself, right? So we know how it feels when your romantic partner never tells you how they feel about you, when your jealous mother keeps calling you ugly instead of nurturing your beauty, or when a racist treats you as if you're beneath them so that you will never recognize how qualified you actually are and you deserve the seat at that table. We know how that feels. And so when God created us in His image, and the image He created us to be is not there, then can you imagine? So you know all those verses in the Bible where He says like, "I'll turn my face from you"? What He was saying is that He's not that he's actually going to take his hand off of you. It's almost like you step out of his light. We'll get there. Building a life that doesn't mirror the magnitude of yourself is blaspheming against you and the God in you. Intentionally calling someone's God-given nature evil is blaspheming. I truly 100% believe that incorrect mirroring is the original and only sin. I mean, think about it. Even in the beginning, the Bible talks about how after the fall, which I have a whole other interpretation of that. I don't take the evangelical lens for that at all anymore. But when God asked, who told you were naked? There had never been a point up until that point where they received the reflection of shame. You know what I mean? Reality is a mirror, and what's reflected back onto us informs how we perceive ourselves. That's why it's so damaging for someone to mirror something incorrect back onto you. And of course, God is not going to be damaged if you mirror back to him something opposite of himself, but he's also not going to take that level of blasphemy. And I don't either. I don't accept when people mislabel me, call me out my name, disrespect me, or don't properly revere me or credit me. I don't accept that, and I don't expect God to do that either. God desires to be mirrored accurately. In Christianity, I was taught that God wants to be loved, and God is love. That's like someone saying, I want to be black, when they're already black. Like, are you black, or do you want to experience yourself as black? Because you could be black in an all-white environment, and what's reflected back onto you isn't your true culture or your true phenotype, but people's racism and their microaggressions. So are you experiencing yourself as black, or are you being experienced as a minority? That's a big difference. The total materialization of your inner wealth into physical reality is the accurate mirroring of God. When you totally materialize your inner wealth, your life force, into physical reality, your desires, your impact, your identity, your financial abundance, into physical reality, you become a true reflection of God, not because you have things, but because what was within you has been expressed, and you can experience yourself the way that God experiences himself through you. You then become a true reflection of God. I want to go through verse 29. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That part of the story, parable, whatever, used to trip me up, because I was like, why would we go to hell just because I didn't make more money for God? Like, what even is a talent? And people would say things like, well, if you don't sing for God, then you're wasting the gifts he gave you. God didn't give you gifts to worship him. Your existence is worship in itself. God placed the spark of life within you so that you can too create your reality in accordance to who you are. God created us from who he is and built physical containment, our bodies and the earth, so that we can exist and do the same and express what's naturally in us, our wealth, and we can experience it. When God walked among the garden, because he was experiencing himself, his presence was there. He was there because he could experience himself perfectly, but God cannot look in inaccurate mirrors. And the difference between God and us is that we're just not, we're limited to the physical. We accept things that we should not accept. We accept a reality that is just beneath our true baseline because we've been taught that that's acceptable, but it's not. And that's what causes suffering. We exist because there's a mirror we exist from. Source light is also our mirror. When light bounces off of the mirror into our eyeballs, we see. Our brain registers it and we see. Similarly, us, light, bounces off of the mirror, which is ourselves, and into God's eyes. So again, it's like the law of reciprocity and fractals all over again. Without God or source, there is no light or reflection. This is darkness. So those who suppress their life force are black mirrors and they have no reflection. So again, when you suppress your life force, nothing is exuding out of you. God can't see you. It's like you suppress your light. And so what happens when you go in darkness? It becomes a black hole, just a black mirror. No reflection. Black mirrors don't reflect, they only absorb. It takes light, the life force, vision, resource, and it holds it prisoner in the dark, the ground. Do you see why that man who was given one talent hid it in the ground? Do you understand now? This is why the master's reaction is so violently cold. Cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. He wasn't punishing him. He was responding accordingly. When you figure out there's an energy vampire in your life, what do? Do you sit there and pat them on the back and say, hey, you should appreciate? No, you don't ask them to appreciate you. You get them out of your life because they're actively thieving from you. The world, life, the kingdom of God, divine order is built off of reciprocity for a reason. Give and it'll come back to you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together, running over. There's a reason why in the Bible and all religions, there's just always an element of reciprocity. Even if the religion itself, I would say in holy text, in old ancient text, there's always a baseline of reciprocity. When someone is stealing from you, you cast them out. They are a threat to you and they are disrespecting you, right? Again, the fractal, when we express our light, it goes into eyeballs of God and he is light, so it goes back onto us and we're both mirrors, so it's just like circulation. Again, if you watch my first video where I titled What is Wealth? Wealth as circulation and containment, not accumulation. Wealth must circulate. Wealth by nature standards is regenerative. That's why Mother Earth is wealthy. From the abundance of herself, she produces, right? But unnatural, inorganic wealth that stagnates, that accumulates, that's hoarded, that's a black mirror. It doesn't reciprocate. It just absorbs and takes it for itself. And so now there's people at the bottom, the working class and the poor, who have nothing because the wealth has been hoarded. That's not how wealth works. Wealth is regenerative. It's not accumulative. We suffer when we lack the reflection and mirroring of our Creator. Outer darkness isn't a theological threat. It's a description of a state of being. If you choose to be a black mirror that refuses to reflect the light of creation back into the world, you automatically exit the ecosystem of reflection. You enter the zone where there is no bounce back. That's total isolation and no reciprocity. And that is the literal definition of suffering. The gnashing of teeth is the somatic friction of an ocean trapped inside a stagnant hole. We were made to express. That's why the Bible and religions talk all about worship and devotion. It's because they have all forever, over centuries and time, have been trying to express our nature, which is to express, to create, to expand. But capitalism, patriarchy, the big three, teaches us to turn our mirrors off, to turn our lights off, and to black out our mirrors and just become absorptions and energy vampires. That is true suffering. That's why when they say that the presence of God is not in hell, and that's what true suffering is for eternity, that's why. Hell is just a black hole, which we live in every day. We do. Inaccurate mirroring is a distortion of truth. It is a violation of reality. When you hide your magnitude, when you try to fit your multi-venture vision into a tiny, safe niche or a small container, you are doing the exact same thing to God. You are taking your 5 talents, your divine transmission, and handing it back as a distorted, shrunken baseline reflection, if any at all. Think of it. If the ocean could never see herself and had to rely on the lakes around them to see herself, she would never know that she was that big. If the lakes never told her, if the ocean asked the lake to hold up her reflection so she can see herself, let's say the ocean is this big and the lake is this big. How can the ocean see herself in such a small mirror? How can God see himself in a mirror that's small? And how can you see yourself in the mirrors you've been trying to look at yourself in? Think of like a pocket mirror. You can see your eye at a time. You can see your nose, your lips. You can't see your full face. You might have to like look around like that, but at that point, you don't even really know what you look in cohesion. And that's how we begin to fragment ourselves. It's almost like when someone sees your magnitude and they hold a compact mirror up to you and say, this is who you are. You're just your eye. Or you're just a singer, or you're just someone who inherited their parents' wealth. But we're so complex and multidimensional, especially people of magnitude. Stop letting people inaccurately mirror you. Stop accepting reflections that aren't true. And this requires for you to choose the containment that can hold you. The ocean was so vast that God created the entire earth to contain her. You are deserving of that kind of earth as well. The materialization of your wealth is the highest form of worship. This is how you befriend God, by becoming his peer instead of his leech or dependent. I believe religion teaches us how to become God's dependents when he didn't even create us. To become a dependent of God, to become a leech of God, is so disrespectful. That's not who he is. Living in reality without the materialization of your wealth is blasphemous. It's blasphemy. It's mirroring a reflection that tells God that he's as small as your fragmented self. Only a whole and clear mirror can truly reflect God, and that is our purpose. Not to be broken, not to be slaves of God, but to experience life, to experience ourselves through reality the way that God experiences himself through us. The universe responds to that clear mirroring by feeding the loop. To everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. That is how you materialize your wealth. This is something that I'll be teaching in my July 19th transmission at 4 p.m. titled The Originator's Wealth Cycle. I am calling in 25 unprecedented leaders, trailblazing founders, governors, and originators to join me to receive the blueprints and map to architecting the containment structures that can actually hold the entirety of their wealth. My Originator's Wealth Cycle is a 3.5 hour-long live structural diagnostic and rhythm mapping transmission built exclusively for the leaders and founders who have outgrown every traditional framework. And by the end of this session, you will have the blueprints and map to navigate and architect the exact containment structures that you need to actualize the entirety of your wealth and to truly mirror God in your fullness and totality without restriction, collapse, or insustainability. If this video spoke to you at all, and you know that you're meant to be in that room, do not hesitate. Application links are down below, and I'm expecting to see you July 19th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Anyways, I'm Naomi Olatayo, the Wealth Priestess, and I thank you so much for joining me for this video, and I am so excited to host you again in the next one. Bye.